You should be grateful we're giving you this opportunity, my mother-in-law Diana said, her heels clicking against the concrete basement steps as she led us down to our new home. Her voice dripped with false sympathy, but I could hear the satisfaction underneath. Many young couples would dream of such generosity. I squeezed my husband Mark's hand as we descended into the musty space. The basement was finished, at least. Carpet, drywall, even a small kitchenette. But it was still a basement, and Diana's smirk made it clear this was exactly where she wanted us. The bathroom's through there, she said, gesturing to a door in the corner. And I've cleared some space in the garage for your economical vehicle. The way she said it made my reliable Honda sound like a rusty bicycle. Thank you, Mom, Mark said quietly. I could feel the shame radiating off him but kept my face carefully neutral. This was a test, after all. My name is Alice, and at 29, I was worth $8.5 million. Not that Diana knew that. Not that anyone knew that, except my financial advisor and the bank that held my inheritance from my grandmother. She'd left me her entire estate when I was 25, making me promise to keep it quiet until I was sure I found people who loved me for myself, not my money. I just wish you'd taken that job at your father's firm, Diana continued, running a manicured finger along a dusty shelf. But no, you had to pursue that risky startup with your college friend. And now look where it's left you, living in your parents' basement. Mark shifted uncomfortably. The startup is going to work, Mom. We just need some time to. Of course, dear, Diana cut him off. That's why we're helping. Though I must say, Alice, she turned to me with sharp eyes. I expected more from someone with a business degree. Shouldn't you have advised him better? I bit back the urge to tell her that my risky investment in Mark's friend's tech startup was about to pay off spectacularly. The company was being acquired next month for a sum that would make her country club membership look like pocket change. But that wasn't part of the test. We appreciate your help, I said instead, keeping my voice humble. It's very kind of you. Diana's smile widened. She loved nothing more than feeling superior. Well, dinner is at 6 sharp. Don't be late. You know how your father hates tardiness. And Alice, she paused at the bottom of the stairs. Try to wear something appropriate. I have some hand-me-downs that might fit you if you need them. After she clicked her way back upstairs, Mark collapsed onto the second-hand couch she generously provided. I'm so sorry, Alice. I never thought we'd end up here. I sat beside him, taking his hand. Hey, it's okay. This is temporary, remember. He looked around the basement, shoulders slumped. I should have listened to them. Taken the safe route at Dad's company. Instead, I've dragged you into this mess. Mark, look at me. I waited until his eyes met mine. I believe in you, and I believe in the company. This situation, it's just a moment in time. It's not forever. What I didn't tell him was that I could have bought this entire house 10 times over. That we could have been living in a beachfront mansion instead of this basement. But when Diana had first suggested we move in with them, until we got back on our feet, I saw an opportunity. For 3 years, I'd watched my mother-in-law's subtle cruelty, her constant manipulation, her need to control everything and everyone around her. She'd never approved of me, the scholarship student who trapped her precious son. Now I had a chance to see her true colors and show Mark exactly who his mother was without him being able to dismiss it as jealousy or misunderstanding on my part. My grandmother had taught me well. Money doesn't just buy things, she told me before she passed. It buys truth. When people think you're poor, they show you who they really are. As if on cue, Diana's voice floated down the stairs. Mark, could you come up here? Your father and I want to discuss some conditions of your stay. Mark stood, straightening his shoulders. It's just for a few months, he whispered, more to himself than to me, just until the acquisition goes through. I watched him climb the stairs, counted to 10, then quietly followed. I could hear their voices from the study and paused just out of sight. Son, we're worried about your choices, Diana was saying. First this startup gamble, and now, well, we're concerned about your marriage. What about my marriage? Mark's voice was tight. Darling, you know we only want what's best for you, Diana said softly. And Alice, well, she's clearly not helping your financial situation. Have you considered that perhaps this is a good time to reevaluate? Are you suggesting I divorce my wife because we're having money problems? I'm suggesting you think about your future. Caroline's father has been asking about you. You remember Caroline from the club? She's recently divorced, and she's now CFO at her family's firm. They have an opening for a VP position. I'd heard enough. Silently, I made my way back to the basement, my mind already forming plans. I pulled out my phone and sent a quick text to my financial advisor. Time to start phase 1. Schedule the family trust meeting for next month. Then I changed into the plainest outfit I owned and headed upstairs for dinner. Diana was about to learn that basements can hide all sorts of things, including millionaires who are taking notes. Living in Diana's basement was like being under a microscope, one that only magnified flaws. Every morning, she'd find new ways to remind us of our unfortunate situation. "Alice, dear," she called down one morning, "I noticed you're still buying name-brand cereal. The store brand is much more economical for people in your position." I was in the middle of a confidential video call about the startup acquisition, so I quickly muted myself and yelled back, "Thank you for the tip," before returning to the $50 million deal discussion happening on my laptop. The irony wasn't lost on me, but Diana was just warming up. That evening, she hosted her weekly bridge club, and I could hear everything through the thin basement ceiling. "Poor Mark," she sighed dramatically to her friends. "He had such potential before he married. Well, now they're living in our basement because she encouraged this ridiculous startup scheme instead of letting him take the position at Gerald's firm." "At least you're there to help guide them," one of her friends simpered. "Yes, though I must say, it's challenging. Just yesterday, I caught her looking at designer handbags online. Can you imagine? When they can barely afford ramen noodles, some people simply don't understand their station in life." I glanced at my closet, where my collection of Birkin bags was carefully hidden in ordinary duffel bags. The knockoff purse I carried every day was actually worth more than Diana's car. The next week, Diana stepped up her campaign. She started leaving financial advice books on our bed, all with titles like Budgeting for Beginners and How to Stop Being Poor. She'd highlight passages about living within your means and accepting your financial reality. Then came the dinner party incident. Diana insisted we join her monthly dinner party with the country club crowd, but help with the serving since we were living there for free. Mark was mortified, but I agreed cheerfully. After all, I was still gathering evidence of Diana's true nature. "Alice can help in the kitchen," Diana announced to her guests, "since she needs to learn proper entertaining skills anyway, for when they can afford their own home, eventually." I spent the evening watching Diana hold court, bragging about her designer wardrobe and recent vacation to the Maldives. But it was her conversation with Caroline, the recently divorced CFO she wanted for Mark, that really caught my attention. "Such a shame about Alice's limited prospects," Diana said loudly enough for me to hear as I cleared plates. "Mark could have done so much better with the right partner. Someone established, successful." Caroline preened, "It's never too late to make a change. My divorce was the best decision I ever made." Speaking of changes, Diana continued, "Gerald and I have been discussing the basement situation. We think it's time for some tough love. 2 months of free housing is quite enough charity." My ears perked up as I loaded the dishwasher. "We're going to give them an ultimatum," Diana explained. "Either Mark takes the VP position at Gerald's firm and makes some significant life changes, or they need to find other arrangements." "Mom." Mark had entered the kitchen behind me, his face pale. "You can't be serious." "Oh, darling, we're just looking out for your best interests. Alice clearly isn't." Diana's smile was pure poison honey. "In fact, why don't we discuss this now? Caroline, would you join us in the study?" I watched my husband's face as the reality of his mother's manipulation finally started to sink in. But before he could respond, I got a text that changed everything. "Acquisition papers signed. Company value, $75 million. Your share as early investor, $15 million. Announcing tomorrow." I smiled, remembering the safe deposit box key in my pocket, the one Diana had spotted last week, and questioned scornfully, "A safe deposit box? What could you possibly have that needs protecting?" She was about to find out. "Actually," I said calmly, "I think this is the perfect time for a family meeting. There's something in my safe deposit box I need to share." Diana's eyes narrowed. "Don't be ridiculous. What could possibly be in your safe deposit box except overdraft notices?" "Why don't you come with me to find out?" I suggested. "In fact, let's all go. First thing tomorrow morning." This is absurd, Diana scoffed. We're trying to have a serious discussion about Mark's future, and you're trying to distract us with whatever pathetic savings you've managed to scrape together. I turned to my husband, whose face showed a mix of confusion and dawning anger as he finally saw his mother clearly. Mark, do you trust me? He looked between his mother and me, then straightened his shoulders. Yes, I do. Good, I said, pulling out my phone. Because I've already called the bank. They're opening early for us tomorrow. And Diana? I smiled at my mother-in-law's reddening face. You might want to cancel your lunch plans. This may take a while. That night, as Diana's guests left whispering about the drama, I packed up our belongings from the basement. Not everything. I left just enough to maintain the illusion until morning. But I made sure to pack the folder containing every nasty text, every recorded conversation, and every note I'd taken during our basement stay. Tomorrow, Diana would learn that basements aren't just for storing unwanted things. Sometimes they're for storing unwanted truths. And I had $8.5 million worth of truth to share, plus another $15 million that was about to hit the news. The next morning, Diana swept into the bank like she owned it, with Gerald, Mark, and Caroline in tow. She'd insisted Caroline join us, probably hoping to orchestrate some dramatic scene where Mark would choose the successful CFO over his poor wife. Let's get this over with, Diana sighed dramatically. Though I can't imagine what could be so important in your little safe deposit box. The bank manager, Mr. Peterson, greeted us personally. I called him the night before to arrange everything. Mrs. Chen, welcome. Your private conference room is ready. Private conference room? Diana scoffed. Surely we can just look in the box here. Actually, I smiled. We'll need the conference room. And I've asked my financial advisor to join us. Right on cue, Sarah Williams from Morgan Stanley walked in, carrying a leather portfolio. I'd been her client for 4 years, managing my grandmother's inheritance. Before we opened the safe deposit box, I said once we were all seated, I'd like to share some news. Mark's startup was acquired yesterday for $75 million. The room went silent. Diana's mouth opened and closed like a fish. That's wonderful. She finally managed, her eyes calculating. Mark, darling, I always believed in you. The thing is, I continued, I was an early investor in the company. My share is $15 million. Diana's face went from calculating to confused. But, how could you have invested? You have no money. Actually, I opened the safe deposit box and pulled out my grandmother's will. I do. I inherited $8.5 million when my grandmother passed away 4 years ago. She made me promise to keep it secret until I found people who loved me for who I am, not what I'm worth. Mark stared at me, stunned. Alice, why didn't you tell me? Because I needed to know something first. I turned to Diana. I needed to know if your family would accept me without money. When you suggested we move into your basement, I saw it as the perfect opportunity to test that. I pulled out the folder containing every nasty text, every recorded conversation. I documented everything. Every time you suggested Mark leave me for Caroline. Every time you called me worthless. Every time you made me serve your friends at dinner parties while discussing how to separate us. Diana's face had gone from red to white. You were testing us. Yes, and you failed. Spectacularly. I turned to Mark, taking his hand. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, but I needed you to see who your mother really was without being able to dismiss it as jealousy or misunderstanding. Mark squeezed my hand, then turned to his mother. All this time you've been trying to control me, manipulate me. You never cared about what I wanted. Darling, that's not true. Diana protested. Everything I did was for your benefit. No, Mark said firmly. Everything you did was for your benefit, for your status at the country club, for your social standing. Sarah, my financial advisor, cleared her throat. Mrs. Chen, would you like me to explain the full extent of your assets now? I nodded, and Sarah began laying out documents. My grandmother's inheritance, my investment portfolio, the startup acquisition papers, property deeds. By the time she finished, Diana looked like she might faint. So you see, I said calmly, we never needed your basement. We never needed your charity or your hand-me-downs or your financial advice. What we wanted was your acceptance, your love. Unfortunately, all we got was manipulation and cruelty. What? What happens now? Diana whispered. Now, Now we're buying a house. Actually, I smiled, we already have. It's that lovely Victorian on Maple Street, you know, the one you've always said was the finest house in town. Diana's face went pale. That house had been her dream home for years. We close next week, I continued, and Mark's company is opening its new headquarters downtown. But don't worry, we won't be asking you to serve at our dinner parties. Caroline had been inching toward the door, clearly realizing her part in Diana's plan had backfired spectacularly. I should go. Yes, Mark said coldly, you should. After they all left, Mark turned to me in the empty conference room. I can't believe you kept this secret for so long. Are you angry? He shook his head. No. Surprised, yes. But not angry. You were right. I needed to see who my mother really was. And now I have. So what do you want to do now? I asked. Besides move into our new house? He smiled, the first real smile I'd seen since we moved into that basement. I want to live our life on our terms. No more manipulation. No more control. And your mother? She made her choice. She chose status over love. Now she can live with that choice. He took my hand. Let's go home. Our home. As we left the bank, my phone buzzed. A text from Diana. I'm sorry, please can we talk? I showed it to Mark. He shook his head. Maybe someday. But first, she needs to learn that real love and real respect can't be bought. That's a lesson that might take some time in her basement to learn. I smiled, tucking my phone away. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply letting people face the consequences of their own actions, even if those consequences come with an $8.5 million price tag.